programme before, the so-called erotic novel 50 Shades of Grey. It's proving to be a surprising success, but it could soon be facing competition from a true story by a South Northamptonshire woman. Janis Hetherington is now in her 60s and lives in Byfield. But 50 years ago, Janis worked in and eventually ran brothels in Paris and London. She's just signed a deal to publish her memoirs, which offer a rare glimpse into the darker side of 60s and 70s Britain. Our South Northamptonshire reporter Martin Heath has been to meet her.
That's the voice of Janie Jones, whose novelty number Witch's Brew peaked at number 46 in the UK charts in 1965. She was a notorious figure, appearing in court several times for controlling prostitutes and in connection with the payola scandal, in which Radio 1 DJs were accused of playing certain records in return for the use of prostitutes. Appearing alongside her in the dock in one of her earlier trials was Janis Hetherington. Just one episode in an extremely unusual life that's about to see the light of day.
At the age of 18, I bumped into Janie Jones, who was then called Marion, who was well known as a singer in cabaret, but also ran a brothel. And we teamed up, and we were together for 4 years. We managed to run quite a successful establishment, but managed to get ourselves embroiled in court cases. And at the age of 21, I was at the Old Bailey. And it was touch and go whether I would go down, although the charges we were actually charged with were trumped up because there was an enormous amount of police corruption at the time. And of course I expose all that in the book.
Janis says she's wanted to publish her story before as a serious examination of her involvement in the sex industry, but all publishers wanted to know about was the famous people who came to some of her parties.
Every publisher that I'd spoken to who were friends or the people in the media said, "Oh, no, just do a kiss and tell, that's all we want." And I was offered zillions of money to do it at various periods of time when various people who were famous were in the press for certain things. But I'm glad I didn't, and I'm glad I've written a serious book, which is about 400 pages long, and does go through the machinations of understanding one's own sexuality and fantasies.
So Janis decided her story should become a film, and she set about working on a script with her son Nicky. He's another part of her amazing story. He was born after Janis became the first lesbian in the UK to be artificially inseminated.
He does quite a lot of script writing, and he had always wanted to write our story. He knew all about my past, and we started doing it as a film script. But then 50 Shades of Grey came out, and locally I'd given another book, a cookbook, and it was hilarious. Well, I think it's hilarious, sort of recipes and naughtinesses, and local people loved it, and they loved the recipes as well. And when they started to read 50 Shades of Grey, they said, "Oh, you must get the cookbook published, Janis." And I said, "Well, I've actually got a memoir."
The memoirs are an extremely frank description of what went on in certain establishments in the 60s, and Janis wanted to make sure they were handled by the right sort of publisher. The deal's been signed with Mirror, a non-profit company set up to fund the production of an e-reader for disabled people. The founder, Fadwa Fadel, says Janis's book could be very significant.
Janis herself is a pioneering British woman, and she led her way through all this colourful life, actually. So this is why I wanted her book. Her book covers a very sensitive part of the culture back in the 60s and 70s. You know, the combination of sex, corruption, women's rights. And I wanted to be read all over, for the next generations to know about that part of the last century.
The memoirs are due to be published later this year.
What a remarkable story. Martin Heath reporting. From